Welcome back to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Cressey, and this is the 39th installment of Pinch Hit Friday. Today, I want to talk about rotational athletes, and more specifically, I want to talk about athletes who leverage the superpower of rotation. Just because you watch a big league game doesn't mean that everyone there is an elite rotator. Some of them actually do things very differently. Whereas, certain athletes, typically your 6'3", 185-pound athlete throwing 95 miles an hour, those are the guys that are very fascially driven. If you're familiar with the infrasternal angle approach that Bill Hartman has popularized, these are narrow infrasternal angle athletes. These are guys that look like triple jumpers, NBA players. They have these kind of like very fascially driven approaches to movement. They use the fascial system really well to transfer force effectively. It's not a force dominant approach. So these athletes usually have superior tendon stiffness, but they often present with limited muscular strength. So when they break, it's usually a muscular injury, right? The tendon was too stiff compared to how strong the muscle was. Conversely, at the other end of the spectrum, if you take like a wide infrasternal angle, some of these big linebacker types, they might have superior muscular strength, but not enough stiffness in the tendons, so they wind up with tendinous injuries. And definitely check out the podcast we did not too long ago with Dr. Keith Barr, where he talked a lot about how we take care of tendons to prevent some of these injuries. But really, training is about giving people what they want, but most strength and conditioning programs are better at impacting muscles than they are tendons. So this is kind of an interesting time of year because I've seen a lot of college players over the last couple months, and college strength and conditioning coaches have a really hard job. When you have a 17, 18-year-old kid that arrives on campus, some of them may have zero strength and conditioning experience. They might just literally need to get under a bar, put some strength in the right places, put on 20 pounds, and amazing things can happen. But in that same weight room, you might have a 21, 22, or even older now with the nature of COVID holdovers and the transfer portal and all that, an athlete who might have 4 or 5 years of strength and conditioning experience in a college weight room, where those athletes have really maxed out a lot of their strength qualities to the point that it's actually become a negative adaptation. They've lost some of their rotational proficiency. They've got kind of compressed, or there's someone that just has forgotten how to move quickly. They kind of get slow strong. So I think big picture strength and conditioning is amazing. Lifting heavy stuff is awesome. I'm a former competitive powerlifter myself, so I have every reason to be biased on this. It can help for a bit, but it can eventually take away a superpower. And one of the best ways that you can check to see if that's the case is to simply monitor rotational capacity over the course of time with your athletes. This is why it's always hard to train athletes just with one snapshot. You get better and better at working with them the longer you've gotten to know them, to see how they respond to a given training stimulus. So I'm a very big guy with respect to documentation and following along how an athlete changes over the course of time. I think this is most prevalent in my experiences when I see like a major league starting pitcher who's been with us for year after year after year, and their innings gradually build up over the course of time. And you can actually see how a long season impacts them. So what do we check? I monitor cervical rotation. So how does the neck rotate? Thoracic rotation. How does that upper back move? Glenohumeral or shoulder rotation. How much ER and IR do they have? Obviously hip internal and external rotation. And then tibial internal rotation, which is a little bit of a tricky one for most people to actually evaluate. But typically if someone's really limited in tibial internal rotation, they're going to have pretty limited knee flexion as well. So that it'll look like they have short quads. So beyond just measuring infrasternal angle, which is, super important, and give Bill's podcast a listen and definitely check out his work. But you can also tell a lot by the feel of a rib cage, right? Someone who's lost a lot of rotational capacity and spent a lot of time lifting really heavy stuff, their ribs get very, very stiff, versus when you see some of these elite rotators, they have these like super pliable ribs that you can just kind of push in all different directions. I joke there's a very specific feeling to like a PGA golfer's spine. Like very rarely do you have rigidity in that world. You can also watch shoulder flexion. Historically, the ability to get the arms overhead is going to go down in people who've done tons and tons of high level strength work. Why? Typically all that work is very lat driven, lots of pull downs, lots of heavy deadlifts, lots of using those lats to create spinal stability alongside some of the upper body strength tasks. Those lats attach all the way down on your low back and even on your hips in some people, and then they run up to your humerus. So they can really block off your ability to rotate effectively. So if you want a really easy test and you don't have someone to measure you, literally just have someone kind of feel what your shoulder and hip motion is, or just go through some patterns. Like, if you lay on the table and just have pictures taken of you as you go into ER and IR of the shoulder. You do the same thing with the hips, and then go and do a heavy set of farmer's walks or deadlifts, like something that takes, 30 to 60 seconds. And then just go back and remeasure and see if those numbers go all the way down. If you see a big drop off in it, your chances are you're someone where lots of heavy loading is impacting your ability to move well. And either you need to make some adjustments to your programs in terms of taking things out, or you need to add better mobility work to offset some of the harmful consequences. I have no problem with lifting heavy stuff for most athletes, but we lean on our warm-ups. We lean on having a diverse offering in our strength and conditioning program, just so they're exposed to a wide variety of patterns that help them to preserve a lot of those rotational qualities as they're actually working through, an advancement in their muscle mass and their strength overall. Where they get into trouble is when the lift is, back squat, barbell RDL, barbell bent over row, and bench press. Like, that's an athlete that's going to lose a lot of rotational capacity over time. And concurrently, you want to do some performance testing. So if you've got force plates at your fingertips, we use Hawkin Dynamics, amazing product. And we did a really cool podcast with Drake Berberet here, so give that a listen. But I look for peak velocity and time to take off. They might go down in notoriously springy, elite rotational athletes, even though their force qualities are going up. That's a sign that the lifting has been excessive. Also love to use Proteus to make sure that we're not just building sagittal plane beasts. So all of our athletes come in, they do Proteus testing, they do force plate testing. That'll give us an idea of whether we have someone who's rotationally dominant or someone who's just very force dominant. And if you've got it, if you've got the ideal range of motion, you're not negatively adapting after doing some of these things, by all means, continue to load up and just monitor how things are progressing. That's what we might do with a high school athlete or an early college athlete. Conversely, if you have lost it, your rotational capacity has gone down and you're someone that feels like it's impacting your delivery or your swing or just your ability to run fast with good arm swing, take a step back, spend some extra time hammering mobility hard, extend your warm-ups, get out and attack some rotational and overhead medicine ball work to try to be springy and really get that fascial system going. You can integrate the anchor system for some rotational training. If you've got access to a Proteus, by all means, attack some of those drills. Just remember that strength is actually easy to preserve. It sticks around. You could probably go in and tickle max strength, with 2 sets of 4 once every 4 weeks, and your strength is actually going to stick around really well. Power tends to detrain the quickest. So if you're someone that, really leans heavily on your rotational superpowers to be successful, be careful about the weight room actually getting in the way of it. I'm all for lifting heavy stuff, like I said before, but sometimes, like with anything else, it can be too much of a good thing. So hope you enjoyed this podcast. By all means, reach out if you have any questions. Thanks for listening and have a great weekend. This episode is brought to you by First Form, an awesome supplement company with a comprehensive product offering that I enjoy using myself and with our athletes. Beyond the broad product line they offer, I also love First Form's commitment to ensuring that their products are the highest quality. They meet NSF certified for sport standards for both consistency and purity. Their Formula One protein powder is the best tasting option I've had in over 20 years in the fitness industry, and they've got several great flavors to choose from. I also lean on their creatine monohydrate to support hard training, their collagen for joint health, their magnesium to help with sleep quality, and their fish oil for a variety of health benefits. Our daughters and I also share a love for their high-protein meat sticks, which have become a big hit in the Cressey household for school lunches and on-the-go protein options as we head to gymnastics and softball practices. Of course, First Form products also have been really popular with our athletes at Cressey Sports Performance, and they're used by some of the top-performing athletes and most recognizable sports franchises in the world. Above all, the people at First Form are top-notch, and that's a rarity in an often unethical business. First Form is dedicated to empowering people on their fitness journeys, and that dedication is matched by only their unwavering commitment to exceptional quality and unparalleled customer service. Check them out for yourself at www.firstform.com/Cressey. That's 1stphorm.com/CRESSEY and get free shipping on your order of $75 or more. Additionally, they're offering amazing 10% more than your money back guarantee if you're not fully satisfied with your purchase. Again, that's firstform.com/Cressey to get free shipping on your order of $75 or more.